Today we are going over my 2025 NFL draft grades for the NFC East, obviously consisting of the Philadelphia Eagles, New York Giants, Washington Commanders, and of course the Dallas Cowboys. So we're going to start it off with the Philadelphia Eagles. They had a spectacular draft. When you've got late round capital because you had a Super Bowl season, that means that you're going to be picking in the back half of the rounds, like the last picks of those specific rounds. And so the Eagles very much so impressed me with what they were able to do later on. I mean, they got a potential top 10 player in this draft with Jayden Campbell. Pick number 31, they traded up with the Chiefs to make sure they got him. They even said so themselves that they had him in the top 10 on their big board. They're adding another versatile front seven type of player with the likes of Nolan Smith, my goodness, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, what they've had. They did lose, obviously, Josh Sweat, Milton Williams in the offseason, but it is usually pretty rare that we see teams replenish what they lost in a Super Bowl roster in just a single offseason. Absolutely adore the Jayden Campbell pick. He is a monster. Second round, last pick of the second round, they got Andrew Makuba out of Texas. I mean, he was a spectacular player on that back end, part of the last two seasons where Texas has gone to the college football playoff semifinal game and gotten beaten, but he is paired in the back end. They had lost Jerry Slade, they lost C.J. Gardner-Johnson, but pairing him now with Quinion Menschel, with Cooper DeJean, I mean, they really do look to have a great secondary. We'll see what the Eagles end up doing with Sidney Brown a couple of seasons ago. He's still there. Parable, so Makuba will get a chance to potentially start. My favorite pick, actually, for the Philadelphia Eagles, I mean, maybe tied with that first rounder, is Ty Robinson. He was a force of nature in that interior defensive line for Nebraska. And this was a defense for Nebraska that didn't get a whole lot of attention, but they were so stout in the middle. Go back and watch the tape from Nebraska's game against the Buckeyes. Everyone talks about the Michigan run defense with Josiah Stewart, Kenneth Grant, and Mason Graham stopping Henderson and Judkins running the football. But go back to that Nebraska game as the week after Ohio State's bye week, and the Buckeyes could not have a bunch of success running the football. They were trailing in that fourth quarter, and that was one of their tightest football games of the season. A lot of that had to do with Ty Robinson from the Nebraska defense. And later on in this draft, they got a Georgia defender and Smile Munden, a starter with the Dogs, and athletic players. So again, they're pairing him with more of those Georgia players we've talked about. So insane value for him in the fifth round. And then they got their quarterback back up, to Jalen Hurts and Kyle McCord, who led FBS in passing yards last year. Again, they go with a bit more depth. Another theme for them, because they did have a really solid amount of draft picks. Took Cameron Williams, the right tackle opposite, right? Kelvin Banks was on the left side. Williams played a lot of time at the right tackle spot for Texas. And then they got Miles Hinton, a tackle, also out of Michigan. So they go with players that can rotate in, and someone's eventually going to have to replace one of the all-time greats, a great player in Lane Johnson, who has been fantastic. So overall, I give the Philadelphia Eagles an A. How could you not, with how good they selected? Had a lot of picks, but did not have, elite position picks where they could get, per se, the best players at those spots. But they could come up with an easily top 3 draft when this thing is all, said and done in a couple of years from now, when we look at the talent that they were able to acquire. Secondly, the Washington Commanders, again, similar to Philly, because they played in the NFC Championship game, did not have a whole lot of, opportunity to take, the blue chip players, which there weren't a whole bunch of, but not the best picks. So Josh Conerly, they get a guy to protect Jayden Daniels for the next couple of seasons out of Oregon. He'd been protecting Dylan Gabriel last year. He'd played very well, so it's just a matter of, is he going to start as a rookie in the second round? They go with Trey Amos at pick number 61 out of Ole Miss. That Ole Miss defense was spectacular last year with the likes of Princely Umanmielen up front, Jared Ivey, but that defense was very fun to watch. So Ole Miss packs on the likes of what they've got on the outside with Marshawn Lattimore, Mike Sanders still, Jonathan Jones, who came up from New England. And they also got Jalen Lane in the fourth round. This kid ran, I wrote down, a 4.34 40-yard dash. Him with Terry McLaurin, Scary Terry. My goodness, do they have a threat now out of Virginia Tech. So that was another very good selection And then the last two picks, I wasn't all the familiar with their last one, Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt out of Arizona, just because that offense was predominantly trying to chuck the ball up to Ted McMillan the last couple of seasons, and Kane Medrano out of UCLA right next to Schwezinger in that defense. So do like these selections, flyers for guys that might be able to come in. Obviously, Washington's got Luvu, they've got Bobby Wagner, but Medrano adds that versatility. I mean, this kid ran a 4.45 40-yard dash, so add some speed into an older middle of that defense. So overall, I give the Commanders a B for their draft, just based off of what they were able to do. Really liked some of their selections. Conerly I didn't like per se over Josh Simmons. I thought Josh Simmons' injury was a little bit stated too much for them going with him, but still Conerly does look to be a starting tackle. It's just, to me, it looks like Josh Simmons is immediately that guy for KC. The New York Giants obviously stole the show by trading up into the first round, taking Jackson Dart over people who thought it would be Shedeur Sanders. They got the second best player in the draft, if not the best player in the draft, in Abdul Carter, right out of Penn State. So Dart goes 25th to the New York Giants. So they have a guy that they're trying to develop. The only thing about that is, and I immediately question the front office, and I would be even willing to sit in a chair and debate it with anyone, Schoen or Brian Dable. You're talking about developing this guy. How much of a leash, how much of string are they offering to Dable? Are they saying you've got 3 years no matter how this thing goes? Because when you take a quarterback like Jackson Dart and you say we're going to develop you, you can't have a 4-13 season next year with Russell Wilson starting and you throw in Jackson Dart and then you fire Brian Dable. That is not how you develop a quarterback and utilize taking a first-round selection. That is the opposite of the way that you do it, to be matter of fact. That just does not it makes sense you're trying to develop him, but with the way it's been for the Giants, you were picking third overall for a reason. Are they really going to give him the opportunity? So immediately them trading up to Jackson Dart, and I heard what they said, I had the Giants as a B. They were not going to be any higher than a B on this list because it doesn't fully compute. If they end up giving Dart all of that leeway and they are happy with Dable to give him 3 seasons fully, that division isn't going anywhere. We just talked about the Washington Commanders and Philadelphia Eagles being able to take some flyer picks like wide receiver, or Philly being able to take some offensive linemen, continue to build in the trenches and getting more athletic. Whereas the Giants, when you need to build out your roster, you take a quarterback in the first round and give up some third-round picks. Love the pick in the 4th round, Cam Scatterbo. This guy is a legend already, stepping into New York. Giants fans are going to love him. So Tyrone Tracy, Devin Singletary will be splitting carries with the guy that is a human bowling ball out of Arizona State. And then later on, Mbo out of Purdue, like him as a guard. To be able to fit in there. Think that he actually can potentially, work in to start. It just depends on where they go with, Evan Neal and Van Roten right on that offensive line that I'm looking at right now for the Giants. But overall, looking at Fedone, Corey Black, the Oklahoma State corner had very much, liked what the Oklahoma State secondary was. Just was, surprised that defense didn't play better than they had the last 2 seasons there. But, overall, the Giants draft, I give it a B. Talking about developing Jackson Dart behind Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson does not, I just don't believe the plan is going to work. I got to be honest with you. It's not an organization like Philly or Kansas City that you trust, or Green Bay right now. And I just see it potentially backfiring on him. But overall, you got to give them a B. Love Abdul Carter. And then the Dallas Cowboys, they had one of the more controversial picks at 12. You knew this team needed a running back. Marion Hampton was there. There were a number of wide receivers, Green Bay took at 23. Matthew Golden thought that he would be an option for Dallas, but they go with the guard Tyler Booker. Look, Tyler Booker has as high of a chance of success as any offensive lineman in this draft. It's just the interior offensive line position is kind of comparable to taking a tight end in the first round. You know this guy is going to be very good. It's just there could be other needs that you have on your roster. Like edge was a huge spot for Dallas, but what's good for Dallas is they took Donovan Izuruku, the 44th overall pick. He fell all the way down to 44. A lot of people thought he could be taken somewhere in the mid to late 20s of this draft, so they get edge filled out, so that really helped. Originally, I didn't fully like the Tyler Booker pick as far as for Dallas, because they needed the help after losing Lawrence, but they needed someone opposite of Micah Parsons. But again, taking Tyler Booker now does look to be a terrific selection for them. Siobhan Revel Jr. out of East Carolina, thought he could have gone a lot higher. Again, there was some of the injury concern with him as far as why he fell. They got Jayden Blue, who will be competing for that running back starter role now with Dallas. Him at Texas, he was one of those guys, versatile receiving as well as running the football, a very dynamic player. So, he just had not the production you would think just because of Jonathan Brooks, Bijan Robinson the last couple of years, who he had been sitting behind, even Roschon Johnson, the Bears running back. They ended up taking Phil Maffa, the Clemson running back, a little bit later in the draft, as well as a pick that I also liked was Cornelius, the offensive lineman out of Oregon, because those Big Ten offensive linemen last season had a whole bunch of competition. I mean, you have to go up against Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon played, Wisconsin. They had some very tough football games, obviously the Buckeyes twice. But overall, I thought Dallas had, I'll give them a B. It's very tough for you to kill the NFL draft, when you're having to fill in certain needs and can't exactly go best available, because on just about anyone's board, Booker might not have been best available, except in Booker's head, which you absolutely love his passion. But overall, still a B passing grade for them. And to summarize everything, Philadelphia Eagles an A. Absolutely killed this draft, especially based off of where they had been drafting. The Washington Commanders also gave them a B. New York Giants, I'm leaning towards B-, even the C's. So what happens with Jackson Dart? You took a first-round pick. He might not even play a snap next year. And that's usually not what I'm a fan of, especially that being, again, like I stated earlier, that how long is your coach going to be there? And then Dallas Cowboys, another B. So this division is exceptionally tough. Now, we know how talented the Dallas Cowboys are. You know how good Jayden Daniels and Washington and obviously the Super Bowl champs and the Eagles are. So this division is getting better, and the entire NFC as a whole is continuing to improve. So thank you so much for watching. Please let me know in the comments if I'm crazy, if you think the Giants completely killed this, or if I'm speaking a little bit too highly of the Eagles or the Commanders right now, or even the Cowboys. So let me know in the comments what you think. And if you have not already, make sure to subscribe for the channel. We're coming out with this full series of grading each of the divisions in the NFL and their NFL drafts. So make sure to subscribe, and we will see you next time with more football content on Blitz with Blender. Again, I am Josh Blender. Thank you.